Vlad, hi. You are the regional.
Despia God.
Yo, let's go.
Let's go! I'm creamy! Let's
Nice,
go!
bro. Oh,
What did you do this weekend?
I won. I came fourth at the Preston Regional with pure Despia. No adventurer cards, just pure. Just regular old Despia.
Regular Despia. Okay. Do you want to say something about the deck before we get in, or do the list first?
Shout outs to Pack for talking with me on the car ride up.
The goat.
The goat.
The goat.
The goat. Yeah, Pack. He's the fucking goat, bro. He's fucking creamy. He's got the sauce. Nah, but I was talking to him about the deck before. Because I was on the way to the regional, I thought about playing Prank It, and then I didn't. So I just played this instead.
Okay, let's see what you run.
So for Despia cards, I played 3 Aliber. Before the structure deck, you need to play 3 of this. After the structure deck, you probably play 2 of it because you probably play the adventure cards with it. Aliber is like, it's really weird in this deck because it's not actually a star because it adds terrible cards from deck to hand that only do stuff when you have specifically just this in the graveyard, Tragedy. So for those who don't know, Aliber is on normal special summon, adds a branded spell trap from deck to hand, and then if a fusion monster leaves the field while it's in the graveyard, it summons itself back and negates the effects of an opponent's monster. You can only use one of those effects per turn though. Tragedy. This is probably the best card in the deck. It's like the only one that actually does anything. It's if it's sent to the graveyard by a card effect, or if it's banished. You add a Despia monster from deck to hand, and it can bash itself in the graveyard to set a branded spell trap from grave. But you can't use both effects in the same turn, obviously. Because why would you?
You say obviously, but
in 2022, obviously, of course they made it hard, one or the other effects per turn. But it's really good because if you fuse with this, it lets you add Aliber, and Aliber gets you to Branded in Red, which is the only good card in this deck. But yeah, I'll get to that later. Then we played 1 Dramaturge. This is just a 3k thing that you can fuse with. It's another add-off Tragedy that's not terrible, and it has an imperm effect that comes up sometimes, but it's just 3k attack. That's mainly why you play it. But also it's 1500 defense, which is kind of relevant because you can add off the Dark Charmer. And then I played 1 Ad Libitum. You can't add this off of Dark, unfortunately. If you could, it'd be insane. So it's really weird because you rarely search for this, and it's really hard to actually set up situations where you can search this. But it's basically just a bomb in this deck. If you draw it, you're able to just in late game scenarios. You don't really want to draw this in early game. If you draw this in a late game or mid game scenario, you just instantly win because if it's fused with, you get to bring back any Despia monster from your grave or banished, or you can bring back a fusion monster from your grave or banished, which is level 8 or higher. But all of your fusions are level 8 or higher. And the reason why this is so good is because when your DP eventually gets stopped or gets called by the grave or banished or something, you can use Ad Libitum to bring it back, and then you just reset the DP loop, which is crazy. So that's pretty good. This saved my ass so many times during the weekend. It's pretty good. And then for the branded spells, I played 1 of the Theater. It's just a poly that you can search off of Aliber. It's nothing more. 3 opening, this is the E-tally of the deck, but it locks you into fusion monsters. Cool thing about this is that it discards for effect, so if they ash this, you don't discard a card, which is really nice. And it also has kind of a dual mode thing where it doesn't have to summon a Despia from deck, it can just add a Despia from deck to hand, which is pretty good. And
it plays around Maxi.
Yeah, it plays around Maxi, yeah. And it has a good graveyard effect where if one of your fusion monsters would be destroyed by, I think specifically card effect, I don't think it's by battle, yeah, by card effect, you can bash it from the graveyard instead. So it's pretty good for playing into opponent's DPs and whatever. Not good into playing into Revolt, but nobody plays that anymore, so it's pretty good. Then we have 3 Branded in Red. I'm not sure if you play 3 of this after the structure deck, but I think right now it's pretty good to play 3 just because when you are able to kind of start playing the game by just fusing with any of your Despia monsters, you're able to just have so much interruption just through this card, but also a lot of pushing power just because you can go battle phase and you can just summon a bunch of dudes. But first of all, what does it do? It's a quick play fusion spell. That's TLDR, but it adds from grave to hand and then fuses. But it banishes the materials used. This is pretty relevant because if your opponent activates a Imperm or something in your Aliber and you already have a Despia monster in grave, you can chain this, add back a Despia monster, and then fuse away with your Aliber on board, and then you dodge Imperms and stuff. So this is a pseudo kind of hand trap resistant card, but it's also interruption, and it's also a push card. The card does everything, basically. But the problem is it doesn't do anything on its own, so you need a Despia monster in the graveyard to start with, and that's why I said that Tragedy is the best Despia, because if you get in the graveyard, it's just really good. And then the last Despia card is 1 Foolish Burial. This is the only 1 card started in the entire deck, because it sends Tragedy, and then it adds Aliber, and Aliber gets banned in red, and that's a play. This is the only 1 card started in the entire deck, because this card is terrible. Or this deck is terrible, rather. So that's all the Despia cards. Then we have the other engine of the deck, which is the Farfa package. We got 3 Patchwork, 2 Chain, 2 Poly.
I saw you activate this card that I was really confused.
Yeah, so Patchwork. So basically, this is not a Despia deck. This is a Guardian Chimera Turbo deck. The only way you win games is by resolving Guardian Chimera, and if you resolve Guardian Chimera, you usually win the game. And Patchwork is good for fulfilling this purpose because it gives you one half of a Guardian Chimera. It gives you a monster and a Poly to make Guardian Chimera. And Poly is really good in this deck just because it makes Guardian Chimera untargetable by card effects. And that like comes up frequently because people kept trying to... I explained... Okay, right. Some people need to listen, okay? I summon Guardian Chimera, and I go effect. And they're like, what does it do? I'm like, okay, it can't be targeted by card effects while I have Polymerization in Graveyard. They're like, okay. And then they try Impermanent, and I'm like, I just said it's untargetable. They're like, oh, okay. And then I pop their other back row. So Patchwork's good, it gives you one half of a Guardian Chimera, and there's also a Dark, which is really relevant. And also just like drawing Poly is good. I was playing 3 of each of these beforehand, but drawing only fusions is pretty bad. You need to have like a balance of like monsters to fuse with and fusion spells, so it's whatever. Playing 7 of these is like fine. If you like, none of these are hard bricks, which is like a good thing. But I would probably consider playing 3 Vision to Future. But we're also getting the Structure deck soon, so you probably don't play this after that. And then we have the next engine, which is just DPE. This is a fusion deck. Like, you just have to play DPE. I'm sorry. Like, we can get away with not playing the adventure cards, but you have to play these. These are just way too good not to play. Especially in a deck where you can, like, loop your own DPE back with, like, ad libitum if it gets, like, banished or whatever. And then 3 Super Poly, because it's just... It's basically just another hand trap in this deck, but... your deck doesn't really do anything, so sometimes you need something like this just to be able to like be like, okay, well, my deck doesn't do anything, but I'll super poly the board away so they can't do anything either, and then we just wait until I can maybe draw a play, and if I don't, I lose. But yeah, this is just like really good in this format. Even against Prankers, I played Weather Washer, so it's like fine. And I played against like PK today, so that's pretty good. I didn't play against the Rose Tenny deck, so happy about that. Super Poly is completely dead against that deck. I played against Tri Brigade. It was pretty good bad against that deck. But, then we got hand traps, just Ash, Ogre, Nibiru, and Callby. This is a hand trap. These are good. The reason why you play these is because they're the best hand traps of the format, but they're also light, so you can fuse with them. Very good. A lot of the times in this deck, you actually don't want to use your hand traps just so you can fuse with them. I know that sounds awful, but this deck is awful, so deal with it. Yeah, that's the 40-card main deck, I think.
Sorry, why is the light attribute relevant?
So all the Despia fusions need a dark or light.
Oh, okay.
You can't really play like Bell or whatever. Then we got tokens. Shout out to Frankie, best artist in the world.
Pepega token.
Pepega token. Then we got the only good card in the extra deck, Guardian Chimera.
Okay.
So it needs 3 monsters with different names, and it needs at least 1 monster from hand and field. And if it's fusion summoned by a spell card or effect, so that means you can't make it with Verte, you can draw cards equal to the amount of monsters you fuse with from hand. And if you do, you pop cards on your opponent's field equal to the amount of monsters you use from field. For example, if I fuse 2 monsters from field, 1 from hand, I draw 1 card and then pop 2 cards my opponent controls. The important part here is equal to. So if your opponent doesn't have 2 cards on resolution, you don't pop any cards. And same thing if you don't draw any cards from your deck. And then also the kind of added effect in this deck that actually comes up where after the structure deck it wouldn't, is if you have Polymerization in the graveyard, it can't be targeted by card effects. And that's pretty strong because it just lets you get around things like Imperm. Obviously it doesn't get around Droplet, but nobody activated Droplet against me this weekend because I don't think it's that good in the format, so that's good. Yeah, no, it's also just huge. It's a 3-3 attack, and the kind of the big thing of this is that yes, you can make it on your own turn, but it's most strong in this deck when you're activating Branded in Red to make on your opponent's turn, because Branded in Red, you add back like a Tragedy or any Despia from grave to hand, and then you fuse with a monster in your field, or like 2 monsters in your field and like a monster from your hand, or 2 monsters from hand, 1 from field. You make Guardian Chimera on your opponent's turn, you just draw into 2 hand traps, you pop a card on your opponent's field, and then you get to go Tragedy, search for a dude, and you just have like infinite follow-up for the following turn. And that's like kind of like where this deck shines, which is just doing a lot of things, kind of. But yeah, if you resolve this, you win the game. That's the TLDR. And if you don't resolve this, you probably lose the game. That's the 4-1-1. Then we got 1 DPE because we're playing the DPE package. We've got 2 Chain Energy. So this card's really good if you make 2 of them, but if you make 1 of them, it's pretty bad. But so this card
have 7 cards to win the game. Go.
Yeah. So this card's pretty good. So it needs a Despia and a light or dark monster. Your opponent has to pay 600 life to activate any cards or effects, and if they're playing any adventure deck, which everyone and their mother's doing, they have to pay, I think it was 9,400 life points to activate 1 Rite of Aramis, and that's pretty good. But like you're never
Most expensive Arabizio deck.
You're rarely making this turn 1. So this deck, there's a lot of times where you can't OTK, but you can put them on like 3K Summon Masquerade and they can't play the game because they have like 4 card effects to activate, and most decks can't really do that when they're playing Adventure Package. So it's pretty good. And also has a good graveyard effect where if your opponent has an extract monster, it summons itself back from the graveyard. It doesn't get the burn effect, unfortunately, but it is just like a nice way to be able to like link climb into a Verte or whatever. Then I got 1 Queer. It just makes everything 0 attack except fusions, and that's pretty bad into DP and Butler, so yeah, it's pretty sad.
Is this the one that reduces to 0?
Yeah, it's the one that makes
Okay.
everything 0. So that's why Nibiru is really good in this deck, because you summon the Nibiru token attack mode and you make it 0, and then you just smash your stuff into it. Pretty
And
cool.
then the synergy is the guy who's the main that guy that negates things at 0?
Oh, you don't play that card, that's how it'll do
Oh, okay. I thought that was like the one way this deck could interrupt.
No,
Never mind.
the way interrupt is this card now.
Okay, sure.
And this card's just like neat because if it leaves the field by opponent's card effect, or it gets destroyed, I think it's destroyed by card effect or leaves the card field by card effect, you summon a Despia or Fallen of Alabaz from deck. We're not playing Fallen of Alabaz, but there was someone who thought I was, so they didn't kill this with DP, and then they threw the game because I ended with this on board. It was pretty fun. Oh, I can't believe the guy actually thought I played Fallen of Alabaz in 2022. Anyway, so yeah, like this is good because it actually can apply like pressure, just because like you make stuff 0 and you go battle phase, and if they kill it, you get an Albert, and then Albert gets you Braded in red, and then you probably win the game off that. 1 Proskenian. This card came up once because my opponent had a light and a dark on board, and I super polyed their board away into this, which is pretty sick. Unless you bring back an extract monster from your opponent's graveyard and summon it to your field or banish it, so you can take your opponent's DPs and stuff with it. But what happens to me a lot of the times, I play on Dueling Book and I play against people who are playing Dragoon for some reason, and I take the Dragoon with Proskenian, and it feels really good. And then also if it destroys something in battle, it's a Flame Wingman, yeah, something like that. That never came up, but it was just huge.
It's a Flame
27,
Wingman.
3200 boy. 1 Dracos Despia. This is like one of the better fusion monsters to make, just because it's it's obviously a super poly target, but it has like a actual like negate effect. It can put a prayer plant counter on something as a quick effect, and it negates anything with prayer plant counters, which is like, it's a super poly target. It's a disruption. It's like not bad. Really good against PK, because if they do manage to somehow summon Scythe after you super poly, you can negate it with Dracos Despia. Then they obviously negate it with Fogblade, but maybe they forget. Then 1 Starving Venom, once again, is just 2 darks on field. It comes up for super poly when you're like, if you're going for battle phase and you're just going like attack with 2 like main deck Despias, and you go Starving Venom or super poly into Starving Venom to kill them. That never came up, but in theory it might. 1 Mud Dragon, I never summoned this. This is for, I don't even know what this is for, but I had Space Master deck. 1 Weather Washer, I never got to summon this. It's depressing.
So is it just 2 Prankit
It's just 2
monsters?
Prankit
Okay,
monsters,
sure.
and it's Armades. Strikebuben Wetterwasher.
So you fuse away Butler and like a guy, right?
You use away Butler and a guy, but like most of the time it's like Fansies in the Bow before they can add back from grave to hand.
Okay.
I super polyed Prankits, and I didn't summon this. I summoned Dracos Despia because I fused away the Bow Butler. And their DPE. Sorry, is their DPE and their Weather Washer. That's what it was. Very cool. And then for Links, I played Link Karibo, because Tragedy is a level 1, and it puts it in grave for Branded and Red, which is very good. And then I played 2 Verte. Wow, that's crazy. Why did I play 2 Verte? You play Fusion Destiny and Super Poly in this deck. Go figure. Did I ever make 2? No. And then 1 Dark. He's cool. You make it into your opponent's DPE, and they're forced to pop it, and you get Alibur, and it's really cool. Yeah, that's the extra deck. Nothing I would change. My deck is perfect.
Understandable.
Side deck. So I played 0 side deck cards. I did not resolve a single side deck card during the entire tournament, and the only one that actually came up was the Gammas I played in my side deck, because I drew 2 off of Celestial, and then I tried to make Guardian Chimera with them, and then I realized you need monsters with different names, so I used 1 of the Gammas in my hand. And then I polyed again for the other Gamma in hand, because it was funny to be my opponent and just kill them anyway. So that was cool. But for anyone interested, I didn't side a single one of these in. So Token Collector, Gamma, Dark Ruler, Twin Twisters, evenly. I didn't see any of these cards, so none of these cards fucking mattered. I could have played with 0 side deck and it still would have came 4th at the regional.
What was Dark Ruler for?
I don't know.
Like, what is it good against?
The tiny deck.
Okay.
But yeah, I could have seen, like, I could have played without a side deck and I still would have topped. Like, I'm not joking. Yeah. Good deck.
Okay, any closing statements and such?
LF boyfriend, meet me at Grand Exchange. I'm gay.